IACT, the Inventors Association of Connecticut, is proud to present Warren Tuttle discussing the state of the U.S. invention industry from our meeting on October 26, 2010. Our meetings are open to the public, and we hope you'll consider joining. You can do that by going to inventus.org and clicking on the Join button on the front page.
Hi everyone, my name is Warren Tuttle, and it's great to be back in Connecticut. I've been traveling all over the U.S., speaking at independent inventor clubs and events around the country, and I'll fill you in a bit on that as we go forth. But go figure that the one inventor club that's only 20 minutes from my house, I show up late, so I apologize. What I'd like to do tonight is cover a couple of different topics with you folks. I wear a number of different hats, so let me start off, as Doug asked before, for me to introduce myself. I have been a lifelong entrepreneur, and I got started in the housewares business by owning a number of kitchen shops in Connecticut called The Complete Kitchen. We were based in Darien, Greenwich, Wilton, Connecticut, and had a food store called The Good Food Store. So I started my career as a retailer, had a wonderful assortment of prepared foods, gourmet cooking equipment, and a cooking school, where I sunk my teeth in Darien. I've known Doug Campbell for many, many years. We served on the Darien Chamber of Commerce for many years ago. In fact, this is a picture from those days. Does anyone recognize?
Or is that your mom?
I was going to say, does anyone recognize who's in the picture? I asked that the other day, and someone said, "Is that you with a mustache?" I said, "Wait a second, you're looking at the wrong person." That is proof, by the way, I'm 6'3", that Julia Child is not as tall as I am. So, but she actually came to our store once and did a book signing, and we had a lot of celebrity chefs, Emerald and Bobby Flay and all those guys, and it was a wonderful school. And I got to learn a lot about the housewares trade, and from the ground up. And I started getting pretty good at finding new products for the stores. And one day a guy walked in with a product that became known as Misto. And some of you may be familiar with that because he lived in Weston, Connecticut. His name is Tom Risch, and I think at one time he may have even been a member of the IACT. And he walked into the shop with it. It was more of a concept. He had a prototype. He started talking to me about it. I got all excited about the product. And I said, "Could I help you launch this and sell it around the country?" And he said, "Sure, I don't really have a sales and marketing guy," and I helped him with that into the business, and we worked around the clock for a couple of years and sold millions of Mistos. There's now been over 5 million Mistos sold around the country, and we sold 1.2 million the first year we were in business. It was very exciting. It was America, you know. You can come up with a great idea, you can produce it, you can put it out there and sell it and make it a lot of dough. So that kind of changed my life, and I decided that based upon my success with Misto, that I would get more involved with product development, and I decided to sell my stores. And I then went on to do a product called Stir Chef, which is one of the biggest colossal failures in the history of the housewares business. It was a stirring device, very, very well engineered. In fact, the engineering work was done by a gentleman that frequents here, Jim Richardson, who lives up in Maine. I think he's spoken to you guys before. Many of you know him. And we did a great job on that end and on the concept. And the idea was to have a device that folded up to fit in a little drawer, but when you wanted to use it, it had a drop-down paddle, and you put it on your pan. And, you know, stirring is the most commonly given command in cooking. You know, you stir everything from pasta to soups to just virtually everything. And this would stir for you either intermittently or continually, and it would do anything. And we introduced this at a housewares show a number of years ago, and we were just had tremendous marketing or acceptance at the show, and just tremendous publicity. We were put on the Today Show as the most exciting new item at the housewares show, and we took orders, over 120,000 pieces of orders the first 2 days. QVC, HSN, you know, everybody was in Macy's, lined up, and I was in the men's room half the time hyperventilating, trying to figure out how I was going to spend all my money, and we put it on the market, and it failed. It just never took. We actually also developed two versions of it. We had a version for infomercial that we called Easy Stir, and that was a $19.99 version that we were going to sell to Walmart for $12. And then we had the high-end one for $29.95. We called that Stir Chef, and we're going to sell it for the same $12 to Bed Bath, and everyone was going to be happy. And we put it out on the retail selling floor, and it failed. It failed on direct response television. And we had made a couple 100,000 pieces of stock to get ready for the big push, and we ended up eating the inventory. It was very, very painful. And as I was working on that with a group of partners up in Bethel, Connecticut, I kept getting a call from a gentleman named Saul Palder, and he said he was 79 years old when he started calling me, and I soon became known as Kid. Hey, Kid, I understand you know a lot about the housewares business. Do you think you could help me launch a product? And I said, well, what is it? I went up to Boston and visited him, took a look at it. It ended up becoming Smart Spin. And I don't know how many, are you guys familiar with Smart? Anybody familiar or not familiar?
The website.
Okay, you know the website? Okay. You have one? Okay, you love it, right?
I think you gave it to me.
I get it. It is actually one of those products that gets used. It's amazing, and it was a great idea. Saul had this idea that you know when you go to look for a container, a storage container to put your leftovers in, and you open up your cabinet, what happens? They all fall out. And then when you eventually find the right one, then you can't find the lid to it. So Saul had this idea of taking basically a base that you could stack the containers on. It acted as a lazy Susan, but then it vertically could pull out of the cabinet so you could stack things on it. And you could put all these extra containers on it and develop this. I planned the path to market through direct response television, which we'll talk a little bit more about tonight. And we've now sold over 10 million Smart Spins. To give you an idea, we sold 6 million pieces in 1 year. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'll put it another way. We brought in 14 containers a day for a straight year. Okay, that's how much goods were coming, 40,000 pieces a day. So it was an amazing, phenomenal thing. We had 10 factories. We were just going crazy. We still are selling today at Walmart and Target and a few stores. It's not run on TV anymore, but it was run as much TV went into that as going into the Snuggies today. I mean, it was huge at this time. So it's one of the best-selling housewares infomercial things. Now, I had been putting this guy Saul off because I was trying to get out of the Stir Chef debacle, and I kept telling him, I can't help you right now, Mr. Paul. They'll call me back in a few weeks. So, I almost let that one get away, which was significantly did not happen. I ended up designing a higher-end version of it called Glidestore. And eventually, I went on to do a few other products. I did a product called the Toss and Turn Pan, which was designed and developed by a chef in Westchester County that had a raised edge on the edge of it. And you may have seen in 2005, it was the #1 selling cookware pan in America. We licensed it. We sold it on QVC. We went through a company called Meyer and did quite well with it. And I've had a few other successes along the way. And then a company named Lifetime. Anybody heard of Lifetime Brands? I know Bob Boros has. It's a large housewares company based out of Garden City, New York, on Long Island, and basically has about 30,000 products that they sell in the tabletop and kitchen prep area. And although you may never have heard of Lifetime Brands, they own the name Farberware. They produce goods in the cutlery gadget area under the names KitchenAid, Cuisinart, Pedrini. They own Mikasa. Those of you who know Mikasa, Towel Silver, Pfaltzgraff. This is just a part of their showroom, which is about the size of a football field. 30,000 items. They come out with 4,000 new products a year. And some of those products are just different colors and shapes and all that. All of their new product development and design work forever had been done in-house. And they have a design team and development team of about 45 people in the building that just crank out new products all the time. They have 3 rapid prototype machines. They have a whole assembly area. It's great. They have 100 people when you count all the people dedicated to marketing and packaging. But they had never done an outside licensing deal until 2.5 years ago. And the chairman of the company is somebody I'd known for a long, long time, and he knew about the success that we had on various products. So he asked me when we were talking on the show one day, would I be interested in maybe helping them sort of lead the external product development area of the company. And we've hooked up, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful relationship. Basically, any housewares product that I see, I run it past them first. And it all works out great because it's a good place to run housewares products past, since they're the biggest housewares company in America, and at least get their feedback and take. Certainly the person who's developed the product or invented the product has no responsibility to do business with Lifetime, but at least I'll run it by them and get some feedback. And then if they want to go ahead and do a licensing deal, they will. If Lifetime's not interested in the product, I'm totally free to take that product if they want. and do whatever I want with it. And then I can do anything I want outside the housewares industry. So it's a great. I'm an outside contractor. I have work on my own. I go down there once or twice a month. I don't have to work for a big organization, which is perfect because I'm incapable of working for a big organization, which they're finding out as the more they get to know me. But what I do there goes far beyond just a role as a product scout, which is something I do for sure. I literally work with senior management vetting. I take the first round. It's a little bit like it's a little bit like applying to Harvard. The first 50% of the applications get slid off the desk because they're not really qualified. They're not ready really to present. And I work a lot with inventors to give them feedback on why or why not they not ready to move ahead. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. Then I basically narrow down the list and present to senior management things that are really worthy. And I might, every 6 weeks or so, I present 35 or 40 projects to them. And of those, they might like 5 or 7 of them. And those are the ones that then we zero in on. And then it's my job to go around the building to the division heads. There's 9 divisions in the company, 9 interesting and unique division presidents that all are running their own businesses within the company. And then I work on getting them excited about the product. And then I actually work with the attorneys to do the contracts and the licensing agreements, and then with the inventors or product developers to get that done. I've now done 27 licensing deals in the last 18 months. So we've gone from 0 to really, really cranking it up. And I'm happy to say that sales are starting to come in, significant sales, and probably next year, the areas that I'm involved in the products I bring in will probably do somewhere at least $10 to $12 million, and I'm sure eventually we'll get it up to $20, $30 million. And that's a significant amount of business for, they're about a $600 million company. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting that they give me a lot of freedom, and they like it too, because I also form a firewall between them and sort of the inventor community, which I know you guys are all wonderful, but sometimes there's a little stuff that goes on there that needs to be firewalled. So some of the products that we've done recently that we've come out with, one of the exciting things is this will sell over 1 million pieces next year. It's called the odor absorbing splatter screen, and what it is a you all know a splatter screen. It's one of the best-selling items in housewares, which I wasn't aware of. It's usually on the back wall at Bed Bath & Beyond, and people use them especially in smaller apartments and so forth to stop when they don't have a range hood and whatnot. And basically, what this gentleman did, this inventor did, who is quite an interesting guy, was born in India, interesting background, international background. He took a carbon charcoal fiber and meshed it in, and now it takes out all, besides being a splatter screen, it takes all the odors out. And the thing really works. And what's great is after you use it, and you can either put it in the top shelf of your dishwasher, you can wash it out, and as it dries, it reactivates the carbon filter. So you can use the thing 600-700 times before it sort of wears out. And it's typically splatter screens sell for about $10. We're selling these between $12.99 and $14.99, so there's a value add, and it's just selling from day one, which is very exciting. This was a product called Speed Prep, which is a one-handed mandolin. This is a chamber that you pull up the top, and you could put in carrots or potatoes, and you could do slices as you're stirring. We tested this pretty extensively, and we had high hopes for it, but it hasn't done that well, unfortunately. But just to show you, Lifetime Brands gets into gadgets. They big time in the cutlery. 70% of the cutlery business at Walmart is Lifetime Brands. They're the largest cutlery company in North America, bigger than Henkel's. They're the largest kitchen utensil company in the world. Let's see some of their brand names on some of the diets. So what I'd like to do is that gives you a little bit of background, just sort of introduce me. And I want to take just fill you in then on a slightly different part of my background, and then I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about tonight, which is, I think, licensing and going to market and things like of that nature. The other hat that I wear, besides what I do at Lifetime Brands and what I do on my own individual projects, I'm also the president of the United Inventors Association. Has anyone ever heard of the United Inventors Association? Yeah, a few people have. I'm sure management of the club has. United Inventors Association is the largest inventor, really, collection of inventors in the country. You have about 10,000 members. And basically, there are 70 independent inventor clubs around the country. like your fine club here, that are certified by the UIA. Basically, all that means it's a process that the clubs go through, that the clubs are run properly, managed properly, that they're giving good advice and good education to inventors. So it's something to make sure people are consistent around the country. We share a lot of information with clubs on speakers and that type of thing. We also have about 10,000 members. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out, although we're changing that into more of a blog format today. And we also have member companies that offer goods and services to inventors, and we certify. We have a very stout 54 question process that they have to go through to make sure that when someone's a UIA member or a sponsor of the UIA, that these are companies that are really good to inventors, and we make sure that we keep out those companies that we aren't allowed to talk about tonight. Otherwise, I'd have to go to jail because I talk too much about them. But we're talking about some of the submission corps and some of the companies that take advantage of people. We're totally dedicated 100%, as you are as a club, to getting good information out to people and not taking advantage of folks. So we have a tremendous board of directors now. We have 15 board of directors. They come from all over the country. We've made really, really, really significant inroads into the patent office. I've become very good friends with Dave Kaplos, who's the new head of the patent office, who actually is from Westport. He used to live in Westport. And actually was out this weekend speaking in Chicago at an inventors group where we had the Deputy Secretary Sharon Barner speaking. I'm going to be speaking in 2 weeks. If you want to put this on your calendars, if you have any interest, there's the 15th annual USPTO Independent Inventors Conference on the 4th and 5th of November, which is a Thursday and Friday of November, coming up in about two weeks. And it's seminars, educational forums, several hundred people, independent inventors coming from all over the country down to Washington. It's a tremendous, if you go on their website and check it out, it's a tremendous, tremendous event. I'm going to be speaking down there, but the speakers are terrific. Do you guys know Gene Quinn? He does IP Watchdog. You can see his blogs on patent. He's a great patent attorney. There's people from all different arenas that are really exciting. So if you get a chance to go, it's wonderful. If you don't have a chance to go, make sure you check out their website and take advantage of them. But basically, the UIA, I'm only here tonight to pitch one thing. Because of my involvement earlier in my career in IACT and understanding the value of the independent club and having gone around and spoken to over 30 independent inventor clubs around the country, I'm a big believer in trying to get more interaction between the UIA and the local clubs. And one of the things that I pushed through this year is if you're a member of a local club and you're already a dues-paying member, that you can join the UIA for free. Right now, membership is $99, and it's a totally free membership if you go on the website. So I'm going to give the name of the website. It's UIAUSA.org. So it's UIAUSA.org. And if you go on that and click under membership, you'll see a category for club members. And so that anybody that belongs to any of the 70 independent inventor clubs already as a member can click on there, and you follow the process through. And when it asks you for information, there's a point that you need to enter, like a keyword. You write "My Inventor Club" is the password. That's what I've been told. But I'm going to give you a little bit more information about that in a second. And you can go in and you can register for free. That's sort of your password to go in and register for free. My Inventor Club is the password. But we have a new executive director, and his name is Mark Ryland, Reyland. And some of you probably know him. He's been blogging for years, and he's an inventor himself. He has many of his own patents. He lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. And if you go on the website and there's any confusion, you can get Mark's information right off there. Give him a call, send him an email, and get involved. One of the benefits of joining the UIA, in addition to what you do here locally, because what you do here locally is really the most important thing for learning, but we have a 10-part mini-series, which there are about 18 really, really smart and interesting people that know a lot about the industry of getting your product developed and to market. There are a couple of IAC people. Jim Richardson was in that video. I was in that video. Trying to think. There's a lot of other people. Like, do you guys know Everyday Edison's familiar with that company. Louis Foreman is in that. That's where we filmed it all. Louis has become a good friend of mine, and he's doing great things. We've got Trevor Lambert of Lambert & Lambert. There's a lot of really fascinating folks in that. So if you get a chance to watch the mini-series, and it's broken up by category, so they have things on prototyping, on product development, on sales, marketing. You can go in and watch the video that you want, and that in itself is worth the price of admission. So I'm here to just pitch the UIA a little bit tonight, and just get that in there. So, okay. So what I really would like to go into tonight then is the topic really of bringing your product to market and how one goes about doing that, and talk a little bit about licensing and what we look for, at Lifetime Brands, and some of the things that are important as you're in the product development process, and be here to really answer your questions. I'm very hands-on with this stuff. I've been through. I've made every mistake 5 times. I have I have a PowerPoint here, which I'm going to pull up for a second, that will guide me through some of the stuff. But I'm here to talk about the stuff that you want to talk about. So what I thought I would do, let's see. Let's pull up some of this stuff. This is the presentation I just gave over the weekend. Just bear with me 1 second. Why is that not coming up? Huh. Let's see where I can expand the screen.
I think if you hit F5.
F5?
Yeah.
All right.
You have to hit escape first.
Escape, okay. Well,
maybe you have to click on the window to activate it.
That's all right. You're right.
No.
Well, you know what? We'll do this a
You want me
different way.
to sort of futz with it while you talk?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just talk. Your choice. You know what? It's always better this way, because as soon as I get off track, it becomes much more interesting. So let's go back to the beginning of product development, and please feel free to interrupt if there's subjects that we want to go over. Well, this is the presentation I gave last weekend. Thank you. I'm just going to shoot through some of this stuff. Okay. So I'm going to get to this in a second, but I want to go back a little bit before licensing, because I want to get to licensing and tell you some of the things that I've learned being on the other side of the fence, and some things that might be helpful to you folks as you're bringing products out to market. But I want to go back to the beginning, which is basically, where do you start? And how many of you have actually developed products? How many have developed products from scratch? Okay, all right, we have a few. And how many have actually taken them all the way to market and have them through licensing? Anyway, any of your products, no matter how, gone out to market. Okay, all right. So fewer hands. So some of you know the process. So some of this you'll have to kick in with some of your own suggestions and advice or questions. But I want to speak in general to the room and take you guys through a little bit of the process of when you get a product started and you take it to market. And it all starts with a great idea, right? I mean, it starts with up in your head, and it usually starts with solving a problem, right? I mean, are you solving a problem? Have you come up with something creative and new and different that nobody has before? Sometimes you can improve people's quality of life and go that route, but I found about 98% of the time, at least in my field in housewares, that the great new ideas are ones that solve a problem, usually that the inventor has struggled with from scratch. And I think that's where it all starts. And if you're passionate about it and you start to work on solutions, where do you go first? What do you do? How do you go about doing that? Well, I like to say that the first thing you probably do is you start sharing your ideas with people around you, and start talking about it, saying, I have this problem with this. Wouldn't it be great if we could solve this problem? And start to talk to friends and family and start to get your concept together. And you're going to sometimes even go out and vet the marketplace by talking to people in stores, salespeople, to try to expand on it, to see if your idea clicks and resonates with other people. And I think it's really, really important. I know in the beginning a lot of people think, I can't share my idea. I haven't filed for a patent yet. I'm exposed. But I think that's a mistake that people make. They keep everything in-house. They don't expand their thoughts, their thinking process. They don't start to expand the possibility that people might critique on it, people other than them might know more about it and get that feedback. And as a result, they sort of start in a limited path and never break out of that path because they're afraid, they're scared of sharing the idea. Let me just say this: nobody is going to steal your idea until it becomes successful. Okay? I'm going to say that one more time. No one's stealing your idea until it becomes successful. Okay? So in the beginning, when you're first chatting with people, you don't have to be overly concerned until you start developing solutions. And I think that that's something that as you pine down and you start to ask yourself, well, how do we solve this specifically? Then you have to get into the technical parts of it. Now, some of you are good with your hands, and you can build working models, and you can figure out how to solve things, and that's a good way to start. And sometimes you aren't, which means you're going to have to get someone in to help you. And that's how I did Stir Chef, for instance. I worked with a guy named Jim Richardson, who is a club member here, to tell Jim, this is what I'm trying to solve. These are the criteria that I want to meet. I want to have, in that case of the Stir Chef, I want to have a device that's powerful, so it needs a motor. It can't have an electrical cord in it because you don't want to run that over to the stove. That's dangerous. So it's got to operate on batteries. It's got to be flexible in that it fits different size pans. It's got to fold up so it can store in a drawer. I mean, we had so many criteria. I'm amazed that we met all the criteria. But we did one thing at a time. And if you get a good engineer or product developer to work with you, you can go that route. Or if you don't want to build it from the beginning, you can do CAD work. You can get a designer to help you on the CAD side of it. So depending upon your own skill set, whether you can do it yourself or you have to branch out and have others help you, you start to narrow down on issues that have to be solved, and you one at a time resolve them, basically, until you get that product into some sort of functioning form. And I like to say it's really important to eventually, in my mind at least, and when I'm looking at things for Lifetime Brands, to have a working prototype. It doesn't have to be attractive. It doesn't have to be polished. It just has to function and prove it'll do what you say it will do. Okay? So I don't know. How many of you have ever got to the stage where you've actually developed a prototype? Sort of the same show of hands? Okay. So you've been through that process before. And it's an interesting process, and you learn a little bit. And every night you go to bed with a ton of problems, and you wake up the next day and you solve those problems. And that's part of the product development side. And as you're doing that, you want to keep going back out and vetting it, testing it, making sure that it does it. Sometimes I get submissions. I got one when I first started at Lifetime Brands. I got a guy who sent me a box of 100 product submissions. 100. Okay, I spent the entire weekend going through them. But they were all drawings. They were all in his mind. They were just all ideas. And I got to the end and I realized there was nothing there. If you have a prototype and you've developed it and you've worked out some of the kinks and you have an idea of where you're going, you're already way beyond, just an idea stage. Because ideas are cheap. They are. And a lot of people have ideas. And you can throw down an idea and you can think you're on the path to something. But if it's just in your brain and it's just a drawing, it's probably not going to go too far. So I would urge you to go to the next step with on the prototyping issue. The other part of this is as you're getting your feedback, as you're starting to develop that prototype, you're developing certain unique things that make that product function. Then you're starting to get into the claim area of patents, and that's where you need to start to look into patents carefully. And the question is, how much do you spend? How quickly? How much dough do you have? And the answer is try to spend as little as you can. And the way to first address the patent issue, at least on a research thing, is to do it yourself. You can go in through the USPTO website. Does everybody know that website, uspto.gov? Okay, and that's a site run by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and you can click on patents, and you can go in and do basic and advanced searches with keywords to see what other patents are out there. So as you're developing your prototype, you're getting it function, you're getting your feedback, you're starting to see if it works, you're starting to vet it in the marketplace a little bit. You also want to see if anybody's ever done it before. Now, I hear people all the time say to me, oh, nobody's done it before, I've never seen it. That doesn't mean a damn thing. What's out in the marketplace is the tip of the iceberg. You got to go in and start to do your research. And in the beginning, you can do it on your own, for your own dime. You don't have to spend any money on it. It just is a night behind the computer. Eventually, you're going to want to, if you get serious about moving ahead, when you go to actually file for a patent, you're going to want to spend some money with an attorney or a patent agent to do it properly. But in the meanwhile, those are sort of your two parallel routes. Has anybody done it before? Can I start to protect my IP? And building a prototype that proves function. Eventually, the IP is going to be important for you, because if you want to sign a licensing deal, typically, not all the time, they want to license your intellectual property that you actually own so that they can, use it against the competition. They want to pay you a royalty, and are willing to pay you that royalty and a value added if it's unique and different and it's protectable. So going that route's important. And I'll go through it with Lifetime Brands, but the things that we look at, they don't have to be patented when we look at it, but eventually before we do a licensing deal, we want them converted to a patent most of the time. There are times when we don't insist on a patent and we can go to market, but it pays us a lower royalty, and I'll come back to that for a second. So as you start to develop this and you start to move along, you are going to just continually go back out and talk. I think one of the great places to go is to talk to salespeople. I never developed a product or never worked on a product or vetted one that I didn't go to Linens and Things, which no longer exists, or Bed Bath & Beyond, and talk to the salespeople, go to the local gourmet shops, get their feedback and ask them. People are generally really nice, and whatever your industry is, they will help you. Usually people will they'll be honest with you too. They'll say, that's a crazy idea, or that's a great idea. And as you go along through this process, you also sort of have to keep in mind as you vet the industry that you're in, what are the price points that it's going to sell at? Maybe my problem-solving product that I've developed is so expensive that it's never going to get on the market and sell at a high price point. I've got to get that price down. We're working on Bob Boros and I are working on a project right now that we just got our first pricing back, and it's a little bit higher than where we want to be. And it's pretty easy to know when the price is too high, because there's no profit in it. And you do the math, and you go, that's all I'm going to make? Let's go back to the drawing board. And there's a bunch of ways of doing that. You can remove materials, you can redesign it, you can get your factories to give you better pricing. You can go back to the retailer to see if if it could sell at a higher price. But usually, if you raise the price in America, what happens? You sell fewer of them. So this is all part of the development process. And the development process takes time. It can take a year or two easily to get all this stuff together and put it to market. But when I was giving a presentation at Lifetime Brands internally recently, and I showed the 27 products that we licensed, I would say 26 of them were projects where the inventor or patent holder is really passionate about what they did, and they went through this process. The guy that did the odor-absorbing splatter screen, worked on this for 2 years, bringing it to market. And I know we can all be foolish and spend too much time like I did in Stir Chef and waste 2.5 years of my life and a ton of dough. But that's part of the learning curve and process. And I found the consistent thing is to be passionate, solve those problems, do your homework, and really advance what you truly believe in and what you're getting good feedback, and that's going to help you along the way. Now, when you've done all that and you really feel you're at the point now where you can start looking ahead and planning out your business model and how to go to market, there are just 2 ways to go to market. And one is on your own, and the other is through others. And through others is called licensing. So I want to talk about that a little bit because I've learned a whole heck of a lot in the last 3 years about the licensing. But before I get started on that, if you want to go to market on your own, there are challenges involved with that. And has anyone ever taken a product to market on their own here? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, so would you say there's challenges involved with that? Okay, yeah. I mean, you got to be beyond passionate. Now you're getting in, and we're going to cover some of the things that you have to go through. But that's one of the routes. And a lot of people get very fired up in the beginning. I want to go to market on my own. And when we took Misto to market with Tom Risch, we went on our own and raised the dough and set up shop in Bethel, Connecticut, and distributed it. And we'll go through some of the steps there. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of passion. It's a lot of risk. And depending upon the industry you're in, it can be very difficult, especially if you're a single SKU item, take that product to market. You really need to sometimes to get help if you don't know the industry. The other route is to go the licensing route. And I know what is licensing. I'm sure everybody knows it. Basically, it's working through others to get your product to market. And basically, it's making royalty on each piece. Now, if you go to market on your own, you're going to make the full margin. You're going to have to put up the dough, but you make the full margin on it. When you're talking about making a royalty on each piece sold, the question is always asked, well, what's the appropriate royalty amount? And I remember being here at an IACT meeting years ago when someone was here and someone was asking that very question, well, what can I expect for a royalty? And someone raised their hand and said, there's a book, and it tells you all the royalty rates. Mary, do you remember that? Or I don't know if it was a book, it has all the royalty rates, and I'm like, my ears are cocked up in the back of the room. So I write down, who the book is written by and all. So I go down to Barnes & Noble, and they don't have the book, but I ordered it. So then they called me, and I happily went down. I ran down to the store to pick up the book, and the book cost me $350. It was a paperback book, okay? And I go, this can't be right. And they go, no, it's $350. And I thought, I'm sitting there, this is crazy, $350 for this book. But then I thought, well, I had them order the book, and then this is my profession after all, and I'll read the book, and I'm going to get really smart. So I bought the damn book. And then I get home and I read through it, and every single royalty was 2 to 9%. There was not a category, toys, 2 to 9%. And it was the most worthless book I ever read. But I'm here to tell you. Yeah, I got really smart. Exactly. I want to tell you, I've made every mistake 3 times, so that's how you get smart, But in the housewares industry, typically royalties are 3 to 5%. Okay? And that's not atypical of a hard lines industry like hardware.
5% of the retail price?
Very good question. You stole my next line. Then it's 3 to 5% of what? And it's never of retail. Okay, that's the only thing I can assure you. It's never of retail. But you want it to be of wholesale. Okay, you want it to be of wholesale. But it can sometimes be on landed costs. Does everybody know what that is? That's the cost when after duties and freight, inbound freight, and when it lands in L.A. at the pier. Or it could sometimes be on what we call FOB China, which is actually the cost that comes out of the factory on. So there's all different levels. And by the way, as you get back to the manufacturing process, the prices go down. So when you're looking at an industry like housewares and you say 3 to 5%, what you want is to get a 5% deal, and you want it to be on wholesale. That's what you're seeking. Now, one of the things when I came into Lifetime Brands, I said to them when I was negotiating the whole deal, as the person who was going to be liaison, I said, one thing I don't want to do is nitty-gritty over royalties. If it's worth doing the product, they should get 5% of wholesale, and that's kind of the deal that we do. But there are industries like cookware where a lot of times it's only 3%. So, there is a bit of a range. You've got to be realistic. But I only tell you this because when you go out and negotiate a licensing deal, your first deal, don't go in saying, I want 25%, okay? Because you won't get a callback, okay? I had a guy who once I took down to Lifetime Brands with a product, and they made the classic mistake of saying, well, make us a proposal, and he came back with a 12% royalty and a $250,000 advance, and they never called him back. And then he calls me 2 weeks later, why aren't they calling me back? I said, I think it's, you're not in the ballpark here, but I'll find out. So I called the president of the division, and I said, so what did you think about that proposal? And the answer was, is that guy on LSD? That was the answer I got. So I had to somehow translate that back. I think you're a little bit high. The point is if you put your house on the market, of course these days I don't know what, but let's say you have a house and you put it on the market for $1 million, and if somebody offers you $900,000, you're probably going to talk to them and figure it out, But if you put it on for $1 million and someone offers you $200,000 for it, you're not even going to get a call back. So be professional, learn the industry standards. Yep.
How does the royalty vary with the price of the product? I would think a $10 retail product might have a different royalty from a $300.
Well, that is probably true. We don't have a lot of $300 items at Lifetime Brands, so from the other side of the fence, we haven't encountered that. But the theory is if you're making 5% on a $300 product, which has $150, then you're making a higher per unit royalty amount. But it does bring up a good point.
The company that's selling it probably has higher margins.
That's correct. You probably have some play in that.
You can negotiate a bigger cut off the top.
And the way to do that is to get off the percents and flip it on them and say, I'd like a dollar amount. I'd like $15 a product. Or, by the way, the converse is also true. If you have a product that retails really low, like for $2.99 or something, you also might say, I want a dime a unit. So that's the way you can get them off the dime. That's how you would do it. But that's usually the extremes one.
By the same token, though, if the wholesale price is $300 versus $50, you're getting 5%.
Right.
You're making more money on
you're getting, but what he's saying is that you get a higher margin. But then generally what's happening, though, is there are more margin dollars.
Shoes you put yourself in. If you know that the company selling for you is making a lot of money, then you know you can push them harder.
But
one of the drivers is margin.
Yeah.
The higher the margin of the
Right.
product,
That's
the
what I'm
higher
saying.
the
Exactly.
But the thing is, understandably, on a $300 product, you're not selling as many units. So the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we can negotiate all we want. All we really care about is how many dollars do we put in the bank. So what happens is as your quantities go down, it changes the matrix. But your point's well taken, and I think there's some variables there. But on a standard item, you want to go out and research. I guess the point I'm trying to make is research what the range is. I mean, Mary's in the toy business. They have a certain range and a way of doing things, and we'll talk more about that tonight. Medical devices have a certain range. Everything. Get to know your own field, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you can get to know your own field. But the other things that are really important are, and I find this very, very important. It's another part of the puzzle that I put together with Lifetime is you should build in some minimums. If they're going to have exclusive rights to your product, then you should make sure that the company has agreed that they're going to do a certain amount of minimum quantities per year. Now, I usually give the company the first year the break because they've got a tool, they've got to get it out there, they've got to do all the packaging. It takes sometimes a year to get it off the ground. If they don't sell any units, there's no worth. But a standard amount of units in the second year and a standard amount of units in the third year and ongoing in order for them to keep the exclusive. At Lifetime Brands, the way we set it up is the first year there's really no minimums because it usually takes 9 to 12 months to get it to market. The second year on a $20 retail product, we usually have a minimum of 25,000 units. If they don't sell that many units, you can have your the whole deal back if you choose. And the third year it's 50,000 units and ongoing after that.
When we work with you specifically, Warren, do you negotiate these deals for us?
Yes. In some ways, yes. The way it works is, by the way, Lifetime pays me. So the cool thing is, there are any deals they do. If it's outside of Lifetime, then you and I will sit down and have a discussion how it's split. You know that, Mary. But if it's a Lifetime Brands deal, I'm being paid by them. So that's one of the cool things. Vendors get to keep 100% of their money, which is good. But yes, what I do is when I start to have a discussion with the inventor up front, and by the way, I'm both analyzing the product and I'm also analyzing you at the same time, because I need to know that you're rational and that you have done some work and understand the industry and are reasonable and want to do a deal. Because if I sense that you don't want to do any of those things, I had someone once tell me I wouldn't sell my patent for $1 million. I said, well, if someone offered you $1 million right now, you take that patent and invest the money and take it and run. That's the type of thing that sometimes I can tell on the phone if somebody's not even going to move ahead with the project. But yes, I then quickly get a feel for the product, and as I advance it and Lifetime Brands is interested in it, then I start calling back the inventor and really start to suggest, look, here's the basic parameters under which we do business. Here's the range. At the end of the day, you have to stand up and say what you want, but I'm just giving you my counsel and advice. And we start to develop a relationship and so forth. And sorry, excuse me, my brother. You have to, I start to give a range and offer advice. Now, I'm big on advice, and even if you don't do a licensing deal, I'll still give you my advice, and if you ask for it. But when we're in here, and then I become the liaison back to the company where I tell them, look, this is important to the person, this is not as important, and we try to structure it. We try to give wherever we can. But by giving a 5% royalty, offering it right up front, and by saying, okay, we have a 25 and 50,000 minimum. And the third thing are signing advances, which our advances are typically in the $2,500 to $5,000 range. So they're not huge, they're not big, but there's something. At least they offset the patent. By doing those things, we feel that we're being very fair and certainly fairer than our competition.
Yeah. It sounds like we're assuming that Lifetime Brands or whoever the product is being licensed to is taking care of the manufacturing.
Yes.
Are there cases in which, let's say, the inventor gets it manufactured by somebody else and they basically have Lifetime Brands distribute it?
Yeah, it's possible, but not with Lifetime Brands. They do not want. They want to take responsibility for the whole project. They do not want to sell your product into Walmart and be sitting there waiting for you to ship. Okay, they're not going to distribute it in that way. So usually when you license, you're going to give up. You're going to give up the whole process. Now they'll do the tooling. They'll develop the inventory. They'll put all the money in. There's no money out of pocket whatsoever. but typically they want to take full responsibility, and most companies do want to take full responsibility. So the issue is then, the other issue besides that is will they partially distribute, and by the way, you can also talk about the trade categories, so that if you have a patent that where the product is different things. I have a product right now that's really cool. The guy is from Cyprus, and it's a special top that fits onto water bottles and storage devices and so forth. And we wanted a Lifetime Brands just for the storage devices and water bottles. But if he wants to do it on his own to cosmetics or toys, he can have those categories. And so you can also define the arena in which you want to go. And you could even, if you want to backtrack and say, okay, we don't have to have this exclusive. I want to do non-exclusive deals for lower royalty rates with other. I might want to go 3%, but now I want to license it to 5 different companies. You can go that route. I did that once with the toss and turn pan. It was a cookware piece. We thought it was limited having just one cookware company have the design that we wanted to offer to all the cookware companies, and we went that route. So there's a lot of different ways to structure the licensing agreement. That's the main thing. But learn about your industry, and if you don't know about your industry, get someone to help you. And at the end of the day, if you can't get someone to help you, when you call you Google search the company that's of interest to you, when you finally hook up with someone there, you're allowed to ask them, and they'll tell you the parameters. Usually the companies that are good enough to work with you are also the ones that will give you the answers sometimes.
How important is it to have a full lifespan of patent available ahead of you? What if you have a patent that's getting older?
Well, that's a very good question. Typically, our deals at Lifetime are 5-year deals. The attorney doesn't want to do more than a 5-year deal, which I think helps the patent holder, because if you get to the end of 5 years and it's doing well, you have the leverage there because you can take it away from them. We've done deals where the patent's been out for 3 or 4 years and 5-year deals off of that. Patents last 20 years. There's plenty of time. If you're into your 12th or 15th year, you're getting real late in the cycle. But if you're into your 3rd, 4th, or 5th year, there's still plenty of time to I think to do that. Yeah.
How do you see a company fronting the money for a patent? That happens in the toy industry.
Yeah.
Fronting the money.
Right, and I think that depends. And Mary, I use you as an example continually when I go around the country. I think it depends on the industry. Lifetime doesn't want to own the patent. That's where the advances came in, and they've paid, and if they really love the product, and you can make a case, they might even pay a little bit more on it, and you could use that to pay for the patent if you'd like. But they don't want to own the patent. That's something that they want you to own, and typically that's what happens in housewares. But as Mary said, in the toy industry, it's a totally different sort of industry. First of all, the toy industry, which I learned from Mary, uses registered agents, a lot. Where if you want to take a product in the toy industry to either a retailer or to a manufacturer, you really need a partner in order to take that. You don't necessarily have to do that. When you come to Lifetime Brands, you don't need someone helping. You can just advance it and bring it in.
And I've had some deals, not where they own the patent, but they front the money to you. You patent yourself.
It's certainly possible, and it's certainly something to ask for if you'd like. But I don't. In the housewares industry, it happens very rarely. So it would be unusual, I think. So,
if that's the case, Warren, who is responsible for infringement?
Okay, good question. And the way our deals are structured specifically is, since the patent holder, the inventor owns the patent, he has the first ability to fight any patent infringement. So if it's identified to him, if Lifetime Brands comes back and identifies it, say someone infringes this, he has 30 days he or she has 30 days as the patent holder to fight, to get their lawyers on it and fight that infringement. And if he wins the patent infringement suit, he gets all the glory and all the money from that. If after 30 days he has to stipulate, if he wants to pass on that, he passes on it, or after 30 days he automatically passes, then Lifetime Brands would have the right to go out and fight it on their own. It's their decision. And that's typically what you can build into a contract. Yep.
This doesn't exactly sound like you're competing with Publishers Clearinghouse. Unless my math is wrong, you talked about 25,000 units maybe a minimum some year, and then you talked about obviously lots of different products, but a typical one was $10, $12 or something. You take that and you take, I'm sure the wholesale price is not over 60%, and you take the percentage, again, I'm getting old, but it sounds to me like the guy's lucky he's getting, like, for his passion, about $7,500
Well, first of all, if you took 50,000 units and it's $10 a pop at $500,000 and it's a 5% royalty, it's $25,000 minimum. So putting it in dollar amounts, in the third year, it'd be roughly about $25,000 in royalties. The bigger issue though is
that's of the retail price.
no, that's of the wholesale. All of our licensing agreements are based upon.
No, I understand, but
If you had 50,000 units, if an item retail for $20 and the wholesale is $10, and you sold 50,000 at $10, 500,000 at 5% is $25,000. But what's significant, I'll give you an example because I spent a lot of time with this on the odor absorbing splatter screen. Of the minimum this year is 50,000 units. Lifetime Brand is going to sell over 1 million units. Okay, so the minimum doesn't come into play at all. The minimum there primarily is, I know a lot of times it's intuitive to look at it and say, oh, I'm only going to make $25,000 and start to get anxious. But that's not the case. The point is you want the company to be invested in it. So they're out, in order to sell 50,000 pieces of that product, it's got to be in 20 different major stores, you know. And then the customers will decide, you know, how well it does. So at least they're doing, what the minimum is, the minimum shouldn't be confused with the opportunity. The minimum is simply there to say, if you don't get your ass in gear and get those goods on the shelf, you're not even going to do those minimum. I'm pulling the deal back and taking it to another company. That's what the minimum's about.
What's the likelihood of getting a license agreement with a provisional patent?
Okay. Everyone knows the difference between a provisional patent and a non-provisional utility patent. Okay. And I want to tell you a little bit about that too, because they're trying to expand at the patent office to lengthen the provisional patent to 24 months from 12 months. Okay, which is cool. A provisional patent is only a 12-month stake in the ground. You don't need any claims with it, and we won't do at Lifetime a deal on a provisional patent. If you come in with a provisional patent, it's great. We're glad that you got your stake in the ground. We want to know when you're going to convert that, and we can have a great discussion on it. And I just had one the other day where we just converted one. And it took a few weeks to do that, but the process took place, and we vetted it the whole way, and then we vetted the patent. So if we've done, out of the 27 licensing deals I've done, I think 2 have not had patents associated with them at all. So I guess and those have been 3% deals instead of 5% deals. And typically there was no minimum on that, and no minimums either. So you get a much...
No minimums is what, as far as...
On a non-exclusive. We didn't do any minimums on a non-exclusive. So typically, but then the inventor had a non-exclusive and they could license the product to somebody else as well. So you're going to get a higher royalty for actually filing that patent. Most of the time you can leverage that. So again, each industry is a little bit different. People teach different things. Do you guys know Stephen Key? Does that name ring a bell? Stephen Key? I can't believe I've come to a place where no one knows Stephen Key. Stephen Key's out of California. He's like a real rock star. I know Stephen well. He's in the process of writing a book, but he goes around. His whole theory is don't file a patent, don't file a provisional, just do a sell sheet, do a CAD, send it in, and hopefully they'll take it. And get some bites on it and run it to market. And I get a lot of submissions from his followers around the world because Stephen was highlighted in the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. Has anyone read The 4-Hour Work Week? Okay, you know Tim. Well, if you read the book, he was a student of Stephen's at Stephen's InventRight, so he has a big chapter on Stephen. Stephen gets more leads from 4-Hour Work Week, and now he's writing the foreword for Stephen's book. And anyway, they all love each other. But the bottom line is, it's all shortcuts. And whenever I talk to any of his followers, which are around the world, because this guy, 4-Hour Work Week guy, has a following around the world. They come in from China, India, all over the world. They're never prepared. They haven't done any prototypes. They haven't done any patents. They haven't really done their homework. So I look at it and go, that's a great idea, but, what's to it?
For the development guy, I mean, I've been doing this for 22 years, developing products. So if I have prototypes, I have the manufacturer set up in China, I have all the engineering done, I have everything done, but I don't want to take $5,000 of my money and put it into something that's not proven.
Right.
Am I going to have something viable to show to a company that they're going to say, we're...
If you had a provisional patent.
If I had a provisional.
It's certainly a step up, and I don't think it's a bad idea because they're very inexpensive, especially if you file it. Right. You can even file it yourself.
I file it myself.
You can. Now, on your model, I would say that money is well spent on all things you described, except for the tooling in China. To bring something, for instance, the Lifetime brands, we're not interested whether you have tooling or not. We're not even if you have tooling, we're not using yours anyway. So people always want to sell us the tooling, and we go off in another direction.
I was over there in July, and I have factories over there that will give me prices.
And they'll amortize it,
and then I'll just turn around and say, this is the source that I have, this is the price I have.
Good.
If you want to go there, you can go there.
Good. And I'm sure with certain vendors and certain industries that works even better. So that's a cool thing.
What protection does this company in the Garden City offer? In other words, let's say you make a deal and everyone's happy and they're working out and then 9, 10 months later and it's about ready. And then you bring in the next guy. And instead of the stir that sits over the pan, he's got the one with the gyroscope that sits above the pan, positions itself, and you just use the remote control. I mean, do they give you any obligation that they won't take that one and say, have a nice day?
Well, that's why minimums are built into this, because if Lifetime Brands then switches and does the other one and they don't take your product to market, you can pull your deal back and have it back and back. But when we go through things and vet them pretty seriously and get into the process, we're not anticipating something that's, we're not going to take something that we think can be overlapped but we think that there's something significant in that. And I look at over 1,000 projects a year, so it's not like, there's a shortage of things coming in. But the things that elevate, the 50 or 75 that we really get excited about, we'll stand up to the test of time, and they're not going to pull the trigger on unless they think there's a couple of years ahead of them. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Quick question. How complete is the engineering design of these products? Do you take them further?
Yeah. Well, basically, as far as the engineering goes on your end, it does. Again, it can be limited. It can be hand done. You can piece together things in your basement just to show. It doesn't have to be attractive. If you're going to do CAD work, that's already going to take it to another level. But it's when Lifetime Brands see something, all you're trying to do is get us excited about it, and people eventually they're going to take it. And one of the cool things about Lifetime is that they'll take that product and they'll make it 9 different ways and 20 different brand names and put it out and expand upon it, which is kind of where I wanted to go next. So that's a good lead-in. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But basically, that's the advantage to working with a big company. If they come out with multiple versions of your product, you're going to make royalties on all of them. And if they use your technology on other products, you'll get a royalty on that. So that's the whole key is to get with the right company that you have the right feeling about.
Question follow to this gentleman's remarks. How do you overcome the reluctance of a middle management person to take a risk? The person has a good job, he's paying his bill, he's not going to risk his job on your idea. I know the toy industry might be different, maybe the house industry is different, but every other industry, even the toy industry, I think, who wants to risk their career?
Well, it's a very good question, and each company is different because sometimes you want to avoid middle management and the lethargy that exists there, and sometimes you want to go into the top. If your wife happened to be friends with the chairman's wife, and somehow you figured out a way to get in the door there. And sometimes you don't want to come down to the chairman because sometimes these mid-level managers don't want to hear from the boss, and so you have to sort of understand it. Each company has a different submission process, and more companies are getting into this arena of open innovation. I don't know if you guys have read the Laughley book. I'm sure Doug's read it. It's all about the whole experience with Procter & Gamble. 25 years ago, they never went outside the company. Today, more than 50% of the products come from outside the company. They have set up a whole submission process that guides you through it. Clorox now just hired Evergreen LP out of Colorado, are good friends of mine, John Fung and a couple of guys that are Western Business School guys, and they now do all the product submissions for all the Clorox products. I'm doing what I do at Lifetime Brands, which is not a company on that scale, but it's a little bit more personable. So as you go around and you look for companies in your industry and go on the website and research, do they have a process for submitting ideas from the outside, and do they have an open innovation program? And that's what you have to analyze. If they don't,
the process is you sign away all your rights, and maybe we'll talk to you.
Then you can't do business with them. Lifetime Brands, they bemoaned when I came in. They said, we've never done a licensing deal with anyone. I thought, well, big deal. Those are just words that rang through my ear. Then one day I got a guy who was really pissed off because he had come to Lifetime a year before, and he said, you couldn't believe the contract they gave me. And I said, you know what? Let me take a look at it. It was so onerous, nobody would have signed it. They didn't know how to do a deal. They really didn't have the culture there. When I first got to Lifetime, we would be in the meetings, and I would be presenting, and the first thing that one of the people would say, well, we can design around that. And I go, no, you're not designing around that. and it's only because of the strength of the chairman of the company saying we're going to change how we're looking at things that we're going to have this. It doesn't work perfectly, but believe me, there's now a feeling in the building that we're dedicated to doing things the right way. That's good business sense to pay royalties. And I've been in your shoes. I went up to Yankee Candle once to present a candle product on behalf of someone. And I'm in the business, and I think I know what I'm doing, and it was like pulling teeth. I mean, they just weren't. It was. So I understand. There's a lot of frustration, and I think that's your answer in going to companies. If a company is lethargic, ours is going to get back to you. It gets trapped. There's a lot of, for instance, when I took the cookware pan around, the toss and turn pan, I took it to some famous name companies like Calphalon and All Cloud, and it was stuck in the mud. I mean, And you got to move on to another company because unless they respect the inventor and open innovation, one of the things I'm trying to do with the UIA, one of my big initiatives, is to identify what we call inventor-friendly manufacturers. These are companies that aren't providing services, but rather are helpful companies. And Lifetime Brands is one of the first ones I set up, so they can put the UI logo on their website. So we'll have a list someday of a couple hundred companies, and you can go down by category, and you can see that, hey, I have a good hardware product. This would be a good company to approach and so forth. And that's we're trying to build a community there is what we're trying to do.
I know no other industry other than the toy industry that respects the inventor, or maybe like the toy, because the toy industry is dependent on individuals,
right.
not these big labs or research and development companies.
Yeah, as an industry, it may be true, but there are individual companies that respect, and that's what you have to look for within the industry. Yeah.
You said Lifetime never takes ownership of the patent, and if there's an infringement, you expect the owner of the patent to go after the infringer, and if they don't, then Lifetime will pick it up?
Yes.
My understanding was that a licensee does not have the right to go after an infringer. Is that true?
No, that's not true, and because I've been there where we've negotiated the contracts, and I've done it myself on behalf of inventors and patent holders. If it's built in by agreement, which we have, and it's pretty standard boilerplate stuff, it's not unusual to allow the inventor the first crack. Now, on SmartSpin, which was Saul Palder,
right.
We did a licensing deal with Merchant Media, and it was infringed upon. And they went to Saul first and said, look, we want these guys bad. We need to protect the marketplace. Mm-hmm. But our deal is you get the first crack. Saul went and did it himself, put up the dough, and won a $300,000 settlement. So he actually made money on that deal. But had he said no, then Merchant Media was free then by agreement to go after that. So it's how it's set up, and that's part of the provision. You're licensing your patent, but with that provision in mind. And usually that's a very smooth part of the deal. I rarely see that hashed out because it's fair for everybody. The company needs to, at the end of the day, know that they have that fail-safe backdrop of protecting themselves if they must. There's another thing that we do at Lifetime, too, that's a little bit analogous. If you filed a patent in the U.S., but there's countries, Lifetime does a lot of business in Mexico and Canada, they will ask you to file in those countries. And if you don't want to file, they will file those and then take the filing charges out of future royalties in those countries, not in the U.S., but in those countries. So I think that's fair, too. I mean, we have about a 16-page agreement, and I've negotiated and helped write the agreement and gone through every possible nuance. And everything we do, we set up to try to make sure that it's fair for both parties, which is key. So then let's get back for a second on going alone. Okay, just for a second, we'll cut back there because every so often somebody actually wants to go alone. You all know the story of the Dyson vacuum cleaner? Okay, Dyson vacuum cleaners, you know that? Yeah. $1 billion company now. Now he's a knight. Mr. Dyson's a knight and he's a billionaire. I hear this story from Lewis Foreman every time we speak together. He was the guy he's from England, and he used to come home from work every night, and his wife would tell him to vacuum, and he couldn't understand why he always had to change the bags, and he wanted to develop a vacuum that didn't need bags. And so he one day got this brainstorm going past this factory that had a smokestack that was recycling the air or something, and he got the brainstorm, and he set about as an inventor developing the Dyson vacuum cleaner, which, by the way, sells for like $500 or $600 if you're familiar with it. He started taking it around to Hoover and all these companies to license it, and nobody gave him the time of day. They said, "You're nuts. Nobody's ever going to buy this price vacuum cleaner. And on top of that, we love selling bags. That's like a big profit area for us. What are you doing? Taking away our razor blades. But he kept at it. He kept at it. He was in a family business, actually, where the family members kicked him out of the business because he was so obsessed with the vacuum cleaner. Anyway, today he's a knight. He's a billionaire and everything else. And he was on the front cover of Inventor's Digest recently, which all of you should have a subscription to, I hope, Inventor's Digest. And it's a great story.
What's the story? He went out on his own.
He went on his own. He took it himself.
He did like 200 prototypes or something.
Oh yeah. Put up his own dough. He went out and did it, and he did it from scratch, and he worked on it forever, and he got the thing right, and now he's reaping the rewards. So the story is, you got to be really passionate and really nuts. Okay, really nuts. Now I had the wonderful experience of working together with Tom Risch, who is a very, very good personal friend of mine, who's living in Colorado now. And this guy was passionate about Misto. You know, he developed this thing from scratch. He even developed all the equipment to produce it. I don't know. Do any of you guys know Tom? He's a bit of a legend. And he when he was 19 years old, I don't even know if he graduated from high school. If he did, it was barely. And he didn't go to college. And his parents had moved away, and he had moved in with another family. And the neighbors. One of the houses in the neighborhood, the mom asked him to come over and do some cleaning out of the junk in the attic and some odd jobs to keep him busy. And she asked him if he might clean her fireplace flue once. And so he looked at it. Tom's an interesting guy, very inquisitive, very mechanical. Started looking at this problem and said, there's no real good way to clean a flue here. So he started setting about learning the chimney sweep business and ended up developing a package that made it easy to clean chimneys, and went out and for $1,400 set up this franchise opportunity for people to buy the equipment and set themselves up as a company called August West Chimney Sweeps. And if you go into your Yellow Pages today and want your flue, you'll see August West Chimney Sweeps. He set up 14,000 franchises around America, and at age 23 was a multimillionaire and retired at 27 with a house in Nantucket. And life was great, except Tom got interested in other projects. He started a company called Mr. Mailbox. Do you guys know them? They're around here. He started another, and before you know it, Tom didn't have any money left. So it was an amazing story, American story, typically American. I've made it, didn't make it. And then he came up with Misto. And when I met him, he was really not doing well financially, but he had tremendous passion that this thing was going to sell. And that we were going to do it from scratch, and we were going to sell millions of units. And he was almost, like biblical in what he wanted to do. That's the type of passion it took. And he's a bright guy. He figured it out. We started making them and assembling them. Up in Bethel, Connecticut, we could actually make up to 7,000 units a day. And as the company took off, it all worked out beautifully. But one of the things that happened as a result of Misto and taking it out, we got so big. When we did 1.2 million units in 1998, we sold 165,000 pieces at Bed Bath & Beyond. We sold over 100,000 pieces at Macy's. We became the number one selling housewares item in many stores around the country. And I was getting like the vice presidents and presidents of companies calling in. Lee Steinberg from Macy's West. Hey, son, could you ship us 10,000 Mistos, please, please, please? And I'm going, well, I'll see what I can do, Mr. Steinberg. We were like the cat's meow. But the thing is that we got so powerful for a short period of time, for about a year, that when the sales started to decline, then they had all the stock. They wanted to ship it back. No way we are taking any stock back, okay? It goes out, it doesn't come back. We're a single SKU company. We didn't have anything else. So they all started these rules. Macy's started a rule. They actually put in a rule, thanks to Misto, in 2001 and 2002. No more single SKU vendors. We will never authorize another single SKU vendor to come into the company. I figured out a way to get around it in 2004, though, when I had the stewardship. I found out, though, that there's 7 divisions at Macy's, and one of them is Bloomingdale's. And Bloomingdale's doesn't operate by the same rules. So I went and got a Macy's number at Bloomingdale, shipped it in there, and then I was a pre-approved vendor and then was able to sell it to Macy's on a single SKU. But then they found out about that later and they shut that whole thing down. But my only point is this: if you're going to go out directly, look at your industry, because if you're a single SKU and that's all you have, big companies and retailers don't want to do business with you. Let's face it. Has anyone ever shipped to Walmart in their own company? Anybody? Okay. They have a book that's this thick, okay, for shipping. It is not easy to do business with these guys. I mean, they're fair and all that, but they are tough. If the box comes in wrong, not marked properly, with all the right frequencies and everything on it, you're going to get charged back. You're going to lose money on that order. So it's very difficult today to run that, and the alternative is, if you do go into your own business, you're going to want to distribute that product in such a way, and you may have to go through a distributor in order to get that done. There's other things considering what's the margin of the product. We talked a little bit before about high-priced things. I think high-priced things are more of an opportunity for you to go in your own business because you don't have to sell 1 million of them. Maybe sell 10,000 of something that has a higher price point. You make all that gross profit, and so that's something that you want to look at as price point. What are all the associated costs involved with going alone? It's hard going alone. And just a very, very, very short checklist, because it's actually about 26 items. You got a tool. Okay, you got to manufacture. You got to build up your inventory, and then you got to ship that inventory. If it's overseas, you got to bring it in. You got to pay all the associated costs with it, and then you got to warehouse it someplace because retailers want you to have supply on hand. Then you got to disperse it, which means you got to bill it. Has anybody had the joy of billing and collecting? Okay. What happens when they don't pay? Okay? It's ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. You got to collect. You got to work on your cash flow. It goes on and on. You have to have employees. You may sometimes be able to farm this stuff out by doing strategic relationships with people that specialize in distribution or that specialize in billing, or maybe they run a call center and you can farm this out. But that's something that you're going to have to put together. It's all going to have to be part of your plan. And you're going to have to put up dough for it. So let's go back to licensing for a second. So that's the other alternative. We already talked about it's a product that solves a problem. Not only, I'll go back to the beginning for a second. Not only does it have to solve a problem, but it has to solve a problem for enough people to make it a commercial success. I don't know how many times people solve problems, but they're the only ones that care about it. I had a wonderful, lovely man on Saturday spend at least a half an hour pitching me on the fact that in the car he has his radio, and he has figured out how to put a screen on the dashboard so as the radio is playing, pictures go off. And I thought, well, that's pretty close to being a TV, isn't it? But anyway, and isn't that kind of distracting? It didn't make any sense. Like, what's the purpose of showing pictures? Now, if you told me that you want to subliminally download stuff to get people to buy stuff, and it's coming through the airwaves, and that was his business plan, and that's kind of what I told him he should focus on. But he wasn't solving a problem. He was on his own vein, and he could tell me all the specs and all of the stuff that he did technically to develop it and make it work. But I don't know that he had thought out what's the benefit at the other end for the customer. And that's really what it has to have, a benefit or appeal for enough people. We've talked about prototypes. We talked about patents. Okay. We need to talk about studying your industry in the retail marketplace. And people often ask, well, how do I get to do that? How do I get to know my industry? And we talked a little bit about going out to local stores, because no matter what your category is, there's local retailers you can go talk to. But there are other things you can do too, and I'm a huge, huge believer in going to trade shows. Okay, has anyone who's developed a product ever gone to their industry trade show to study it? Okay, yep. I mean, I think it's a great place. It's a microcosm of America. It's Main Street America when you go out to the trade shows. If you walk them properly, you can learn a tremendous amount. Sometimes the first day is a little bit crazy, but if you wait to the second or third day, you can go into booths and actually talk to senior officials at companies. There usually is a high testosterone. They realize they came to the show. They don't have enough new products. You come in there and you go, I'm an inventor. I have a new product that will help you. They're usually da-da-da-da-da. They want to talk to you. They want to meet with you. So going to trade shows is important. One of the big initiatives that I'm trying to do at the UIA, and we're getting there slowly, is to do more things with industry trade shows. Because for years we've had these sort of national inventor fairs. We used to have a wonderful one, do you remember it, called Yankee Expo, right? Am I touching something close to our hearts here? Who's been to the Yankee Expo? Okay. All right. One of the wonderful little cozy little inventor shows around the country. There's another one called the Minnesota Inventors Congress, MIC. It's in Redwood Falls. Has anybody ever been to that? Okay, it's similar but on a bigger level. But these are a dying breed because nobody's coming to them. Product scouts aren't going to them. There's not enough inventors going to them. There's just not an economy there. What people want to do, though, is they want to go to, oh, by the way, INPEX. You guys know the INPEX show? And they're associated with Invent Help, which is the Submission Corp, which is, yeah, we won't talk about them, but I'm not allowed to talk because I have a restraining order, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. But INPEX is a trade show, but it's in Pittsburgh. I've been to it. It's not a great trade show. This quality of stuff is horrible there. So on a national, people keep coming to me saying the UIA should run a national show, but the economics are not there. So what I've tried to do is to go out. We just established a center, an inventor help center showcase area at the hardware show, and we had 88 booths last May, and we're going to have over 100 booths this year. And basically, we set up a whole arena so that manufacturers can walk through, see the new product area. Licensing, 4 or 5 licensing deals were done right out of that show. We set up an inventor workshop to train people and help people. And basically, we're taking the show on the road. So anybody who has a hardware product here should really consider going to the hardware show, which is in Las Vegas every May. Okay, and look on the National Hardware Show website. If you want to have a booth there, show your product, you'll get tremendous exposure. We then just signed a deal to do the PGA show. So we're going to run the Inventor Showcase area at the PGA show in Orlando this January. So if anybody has a golf idea, you come there. Many of us went to speak at the Houseware show, and we're looking into some sort of strategic relationship there. We want to do something in the automotive field. We want to spread this out, so we're doing 6 or 8 shows someday and getting involved there. But any show that you go to, see if they have an inventor area and if there's something that you can participate in. And certainly walk the aisles. And while you're there, sign up for the industry trade magazines, okay? Because it's a great way to learn more about the industry. You can stay up to date on current events, but at the back you can find names of reps, other things that are going on in the industry, and another way to get familiar. And then walk the show and go into booths and talk to people. Be polite. Sometimes that group at the table may be Walmart, so you don't want to barge in on that meeting. But you can ask around, leave your card, at least set up a meeting for down the road or a phone call for down the road. It's a great way to learn. And obviously you can go these days out to stores, but also you can use the internet to Google search just about anything. I mean, while Bob Morris and I are having a conversation today about cookware and products at QVC, another guy and I are online simultaneously just zeroing through everything and collecting all the information on it. Within minutes we knew all the price points, assortments, and everything that was going on in that particular area. It's very easy to do, as you all know. So specifically with Lifetime Brands, when you come in the door, we're looking for functional and innovative new products that solve problems. We've gone over that. Prototypes, patent research, as we've talked about in the beginning, and eventually filings. They want to license something tangible, and we're looking for sane and rational folks that understand what's going on in the industry. They understand the difference between a good deal and a bad deal. Now, what are some of the things that we do specifically at Lifetime? And I just want to give a little pitch because it's not so much about Lifetime because you may not have a Houseworks product, and I'm not here to sell them. And by the way, I spent a half an hour on the phone with a guy today who I recommended to him that he should take his product to market on his own and not bring it to Lifetime. So you should only do things, folks, that are in your interest, no matter who's pitching you on it. And I have enough things coming in that I can hopefully advise people properly because at the end of the day, I want to keep my reputation intact even more than theirs. But one of the things that a good company like Lifetime Brands should be able to do is, number one, provide tremendous exposure and distribution to all the major retail outlets in America. So whatever industry you're in, and I understand that there's unique things, for instance, about the toy industry, but in general, when you go out, you're going to want to find the biggest, baddest ass company that sells more products than anybody else in the particular category that you've chosen, if they're a decent company to work with. Because they're the ones that are going to have the most reach, put the most effort into it, and get it out. They're not always the best company, but it's the best place to start, okay? And that's what you want to do. You want to get exposure and distribution. You want to have somebody with reach. There are smaller companies that are, for instance, in the kitchen utensil business. They don't have as much reach. They don't have as many stores. They'll never do the amount of volume that you want to do. And you have to be aware of that when you go out. In the case of Lifetime Brands, their approach to market is they want to, let me say that most retailers hate each other, okay? Walmart hates Bed Bath, or I don't know that Walmart hates anyone. They probably don't even think about it. But Bed Bath hates Walmart, Target. Nobody wants to, everybody, I mean, if we put a product out like SmartSpin at $19.99 and then Walmart breaks it at $18.99, the phones are like ringing off the hook from, everybody else. They lowered the price, don't ship them, it's not fair. And then they'll say, well, we want to be at $18.99, and then you've got to give us a kickback of money to cover the chargebacks and everything else to get us to that price. It's a mess. So what Lifetime does, and any good company does in our arena, is they put things under different brands. So they'll take one product and they'll make different versions of it, and they'll sell one version to Walmart and they'll put that under Farberware, and that'll be their product. And they'll take the exact same product and add a few features and put it on the KitchenAid brand, and they'll sell it to Macy's, who can sell it for $5 more. And they'll sell it under the house brand, the QVC, and they'll take it out to everybody. In addition to having 32 brand names, they make almost all the kitchen equipment for Kohl's under the Food Network brand. They do most of the Martha Stewart stuff for Macy's. So they have a big reach in this. And the idea is to present it in different ways so there's not continuing wars going on. So try to make sure you're dealing with a company that has enough reach and a marketplace strategy that they can not just sell a little bit. More times I go to shows and I meet people and they say, I'm licensing my product with QVC, or I'm licensing my product with Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond is a fine company. They're only 4% of the housewares business. If you license your product exclusively to Bed Bath & Beyond, you've just reduced your odds by 1/25th of what's going on out in the marketplace. You want to go to a company that can sell Bed Bath & Beyond and everybody else is what you want to do. In the case of Lifetime, they also have people, as I said before, dedicated to design and development. And any good company, forget about Lifetime Brands, should be able to get excited about your product and say, we can value add to what you have by doing this, this, and this, and keep this thing going. It's usually a good relationship, and they respect what you've brought to the table. They're not going to go around you, but they want to, they see the value in it. That's what you want people that do fair licensing deals. You could probably tell from day one when you sign an NDA how onerous the company is. Okay? I get compliments all the time on the Lifetime NDA, and I use the same one myself, although it's fairly lengthy. It's very fair. And that's, again, because we sat down and we made it fair, because we want to send out that type of image to everybody. But you get some companies, and they don't have very fair NDAs. You have to look at it very, very carefully. And we like to acknowledge the inventor's role. We've been doing a lot of press and things for actual inventors that come in, newspapers, trade magazines, and everything, basically sending out an image that we're an inventor-friendly company. And on that odor-absorbing splatter screen, the gentleman whose name is Thaddeus Alamau, he has this personal dream to bring fresh water to Africa, which is a big, big project, because, I don't know, I lived in Africa for a year, and it's a big continent. But God bless him. If that's what he wants to do with his royalties, we actually put on the back of the packaging that about his website and about the issue of fresh water. Of course, we have fresh water issues even here in the U.S. It'd be interesting to see if people really respond to it. But we give him full credit for that, and we give him full credit for the fact that he's using a lot of his proceeds to do something that he personally believes in. So if an inventor has an interesting story, we try to promote that. And I just again say that because that's the image that a good company should give out. So what's going to drive your decision? It's your financial resources, it's your time, the amount of passion you can put into the project. These are all things that initially are going to drive your course, whether you can go it alone or whether you have to turn it over to other folks. How strong is the consumer feedback? Are you rationally reviewing that? What industry are you in? Product, the margin, as Bob pointed out before, and what your own personal goals are. All these things go into the process. And most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, people end up going the licensing route.
If their engineers do value-added design to the product, now, if they decide that they want to apply for patents for that, is that going to be
Very good question.
Is that going to be through their
Very good question. In the case of Lifetime Brands, we give the first opportunity back to the inventor. And that's, again, now you're wondering why this company just went from not understanding anything to why are they doing all these nice things. And the reason is me. I mean, I don't mean that egotistically. It just means that when I sat down and they really wanted help, I insisted on those things more than my salary up front, that we're not going to steal, that we're going to give inventors a chance to do exactly that, to expand on their product, that we're going to never go around. We sort of have this Bible of bylaws, and we've gotten everybody in management, or not everyone, the president, the senior folks to buy into it. The middle-level managers, we're still working on them. We're still kicking their ass around the building. But overall, I can call the fire switch almost any time. If I see something wrong going on in the building, I can fire switch. So hopefully, my dream has always been to have an influence on our entire housewares industry. And by going to the biggest company and working from the inside, if we can set up the proper rules, that this will become a model for the way other companies do business. I'm hoping, yeah.
I just want to mention, I assume, I take it for granted, I've had as many companies as anyone here, and probably as many wires, but we won't go there. But the point is, when this gentleman says go it alone, you don't really go it alone. Like, if you're a pretty good partner, you're saying, I'm a good partner, and you got a wife, and she's a pretty good partner, you got a pretty good partner, and you're way ahead of me. But the point is, if business-wise, if you're so good in this with the mind and the invention, here's that part. You're just as much lacking on the other side. Maybe you got extra passion, but maybe you're not as good marketing, and you're not. I mean, people with this, and you're an even worse manager. I can tell you for sure, you're an even worse manager. So if you get a partner, you're lucky enough to find a partner through the business end that can do this marketing, or maybe do what this gentleman does, or do some of that. And you're good, and they're good. You're out of business. Good and good does not work. They got to be great. And by the time you get through dealing with the chances of you giving 50% of what you got are really low. And the situation is, unless they're really great at what they do, and they're great at the marketing or the money or whatever you give them, so when you go it alone, you can't be alone. And if you have this vision, you're going to sit there and everything's going to come together. You can forget it. And if you decide you met this guy and he seems to know what he's doing and probably help you out, you're out of business. Forget it.
Well, the key is finding the right people. No question about it. And you can set up your partnerships in different ways, and you can contract service out various elements. And it's America today. With a laptop and a cell phone, man, you can work out of the Himalayas. It's wonderful. So you can do it. It's much easier than it's ever been.
It is. Yeah, I knew you back when you started Misto. So you went alone on that. Did you license that, or would you license it if you went back?
No. Well, I didn't make the decision. But that was the right decision, and it was very, very fortunate. The cool thing is that Misto, after we took it up to selling, over $1 million a year, after I left, I don't know why, but it slid back down, like 200,000. And I actually got Lifetime to buy the company last year, and now they're going to do over 1 million units again with it. Lifetime owns Misto now, and they're going to do over 1 million units with it again because it's so it's back, But it's.
Well, why was that a go alone?
Well, it was a go alone.
You knew the industry.
Yeah, I think Tom's passion in the beginning, because he was fully committed. He raised the dough. He had an investor. We had a distribution center. We had a lot of components were in place. He really studied it carefully. He went beyond the pale in terms of getting it set up properly, which was all to his own credit, because he knew exactly what he was getting. And the reason he knew was because he had run this August West business, and he failed at all these other businesses. So he actually knew what he was doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's a much harder take. And he had this. Yeah, I mean, he would have. I mean, the sale that happened with Lifetime with Misto is he got something, and then he's still collecting some on their sales, and he's right back to making more money than he made in the last couple of years. So it's worked out for him again. So if he had licensed Misto and it had reached its potential, he probably would have done just fine. But I worry in the beginning that management at these companies didn't really understand Misto in the beginning. It took a visionary to really get it and get it out to market. He was sort of a Steve Jobs in that little area to really understand what it was all about. He had the vision from the beginning. Most housewares companies don't necessarily have it.
The venture model is, you start a company, you have some sales, then you get funding.
Well, and some people do it. The problem is, Doug, in the housewares industry, and I'm sure it's different in other industries, is how do you do that today on a cost-effective basis? You can run things out through some gourmet stores. You can run ads in the back of magazines. You can get internet sales. it's a fair amount of investment up front. It's not a bad way. It's not a bad way to go to prove it. If you're just proving that in order to get a licensing deal, it's probably not cost effective because you probably could have gotten a licensing deal with spending a lot less. If you're really taking it out to see first at giving yourself a crack and making a go at it, then that's probably the route you want to go to see what it is that you have. Usually when you do test, you're going to get early results and they're going to be strong and good if you're really going to go ahead with it. So, if you put something out there and it sits and it doesn't sell, and I get these calls all the time. I had one today. The person had run an item on infomercial. They talked to me like I've never done an infomercial in my life. They start telling. The first thing I say was, "How are the results? Tell me the CPU and what the numbers were." Well, it was on at 4 in the morning. It wasn't shot right. They didn't have the right copy. And this is all code for. So I listened there for that. I said, "So it didn't work out for you, did it? It didn't make it. Well, it did." I said, "Look, let me just tell you that I'm just going to speak to you as an adult here. Don't read anything emotionally into what I'm saying. But I knew from the first sentence that your product failed on DRTV, and that's why you're here. That's fine. Let's take it from there. So, it's the testing process. When you take it out, it's usually, even if it's on TV or magazines or wherever you take it, even if you go down to the local Complete Kitchen and demo it on the floor, you should see early sales results, or you're not on to something. Get out, move out quickly, and get on to the next project.
Change subject.
Yeah.
You look at computer-generated prototypes.
Yes, and we actually have rapid prototype machines that we build things for. We have had experiences where inventors have brought us the CAD files, and
I'm not saying physical.
Yeah.
Something just on your screen like that.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Functions.
We certainly look at that,
right.
and that will capture our attention.
Right.
But then the next question is, can you build one?
Sure.
And then a lot of times what we do is we'll even build a rapid prototype off of the model ourselves, which is not inexpensive to do, but if we want to see the size and the shape and how it comes out. And then one time we didn't go ahead with the product. The inventor was really upset, so I sent him the actual model that we built, which was worth a couple grand, and sent it back to him. Yes, the answer is we certainly will look at that, and that's a step in the process.
Not everything can be built with rapid prototypes.
Yeah.
Do you have a shop there that you're actually machining stuff out?
No. There's a really interesting company that's getting started in San Jose or Silicon Valley that actually is a prototype, not a prototype building center where they have all types of tools and you can come in and rent space and build your prototypes. And it's something that the head of the patent office has asked me if I would spread the word about for them. But Lifetime will, if it's not rapid, then they'll go overseas generally and work direcally with factories to have them.
Sub it out to engineering companies that stuff?
They don't sub a lot of stuff. They usually work with their own factories on stuff. Generally, but it could work in different ways.
Last question.
Oh yeah.
One more question.
One more question. Is everyone still awake? Okay. Yeah.
I want to ask one general question. How in these 2 years is, because we lost many jobs, the creation of the jobs not are satisfied, and now I saw the Prime Minister of China, and they told never China overpass the United States because we are very entrepreneurial. And from your experience now, how the Inventor Association and what you saw to make the invention to apply in industry to increase, what needs to generate to these people, especially the young people, because we saw our students, they use the new technology.
Well, it's a good question. And what I've seen in the last 2 years, I've never seen the word innovation used more than in the last year. More and more companies are realizing that they're going to be successful in a tough marketplace, that they have to be innovative. And the good companies realize that they can't necessarily do all that innovation in-house, so they're looking at a house. There are more people inventing more submissions today than ever, and it's a fact that usually during depressions, recessions, and tough times that more great ideas come forth. a lot of the cool things that happened in the 80s and 90s were developed in the 70s, in the recessions of the 70s. More people are out of work. More people are doing this on the side. What it takes, though, is when I sat down with Lifetime Brands when I came on board 2 years ago, which was just before things started to fall apart, was the chairman of the company said to me, we're doubling down in this tough economy, and while other companies are going to go under, we're going to be innovative and we're going to grow. And in fact, that's exactly what they've done, and their business is going to be up significantly this year. So I'd like to think that this is a good opportunity to bring forth ideas that now Mr. Oros has an additional theory on that, which if I could just steal it for a second and give him full credit for it, he can talk by himself, is that we're also going to go rapidly into a time in the next 9 or 12 months where companies who haven't kept up on the innovative front, as the economy starts to come back, is all of a sudden going to go out to shows and realize they were left behind. And then there's going to be a whole running, from behind to catch up. So his theory, which I tend to agree with, is there's going to be a lot of opportunities over the next year or 18 months on a macro level. Did I say that right, Bob?
Yeah. They're going to look at a rearview mirror and say the pipeline is dry, and they're going to go out shopping, and they're all going to be queuing up, and the multiples for IP is going to go through the roof. So we're telling our clients to shop now, don't wait, because you can get best in class at a much more reasonable price. The same token, there are companies out there now who are taking the place of angels, I should mention, because angels many times have gone downstream but doesn't even try anything. And companies are now looking for opportunities to invest in startups and in IP so that they can then have bets on the future, and they'll have 2 or 3 bets. And at some point they'll strike a price that they've agreed upon, or they'll have the right of last offer. So that's another dynamic that's going on.
So it's I think it's a good time to be in this field in general. So and I will tell you that the more I've gotten involved and I've gone around, speaking, getting involved, there's tremendous interest in the U.S. Patent Office on simplifying, speeding up the process for patent filings. Dave Cobb is a tremendously creative and hardworking guy that's doing great things. The real belief is we're 750,000 patents backlogged right now. It's taken 4.5 years. Some of the next great ideas to get this economy are stuck there. So let's get it moving. Let's get this economy moving. They think they can add jobs by doing that. And unfortunately, Congress hasn't taken up. There's patent reform on the table. I didn't really get to that. Was I going to talk about patent reform tonight?
That's next time.
I can come back. I've talked on that subject many, many times. But patent reform is out there, and eventually it's going to take place. And it's an interesting debate in its own right. But
thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Have cards here.
Our meetings are open to the public, and we hope you'll consider joining. You can do that by going to inventus.org and clicking on the Join button on the front page.